This night gives new meaning to the term Hammer Time. This is Sega Masters. Today is sort of a landmark episode of Sega Masters. In August of 1987, as the Master System was struggling to establish itself in North America, Sega brought their console across the Atlantic Ocean to what is essentially the third video game territory, Europe. Sega enlisted the aid of Mastertronic, one of the top computer game publishers at the time, to handle the distribution of the console and software, starting with the UK and eventually branching out to the rest of the continent. In time, the Master System would enjoy a lot of success in Europe, even outshining Nintendo's console. I mention this because while most of the games we've covered in the series thus far made up the first wave of releases in Europe, today we have our first game for the Western market not to get a North American release. And it's even a title I hinted at in a previous episode. Back in episode 16 we covered the space shooter Astro Warrior, and you might remember I mentioned that it saw 3 different releases. After its initial standalone debut, Astro Warrior was later part of 2 different combo cartridges. Sega gamers in the States are most likely familiar with the Hang-On Astro Warrior pairing that was often bundled with the console. But in the fall of 1987, as the Master System was beginning its run in Europe, Sega saw fit to dust off a Sega card originally made for their Mark III console in Japan 2 years earlier, and have that title join Astro Warrior on a combo cartridge instead of Hang-On, which got a standalone release. And thus today's episode spotlights Astro Warrior's other dancing partner. That would be Pit-Pot, the Magical Castle, which is an original game instead of an arcade or computer port. And right away you can get an idea of how this review is going to go from this 1985-ish title screen. With this game originally appearing on a Sega card, you can imagine the content is a little limited, which probably explains why it's on a combo card. You take the role of a knight named Eagle looking to explore this enchanted castle and rescue a princess, as well as fill your pockets with the treasure within. After the witch gives you this magic mallet, you head into the castle to begin your mission in earnest. On paper, Pit-Pot looks like a simple dungeon crawler that basically works just like the underworld levels in The Legend of Zelda. The castle is made up of a number of rooms, depending on which difficulty you chose, and you make your way through each room looking for treasure and eventually the princess. You especially need to find the potion to wake the princess up, the cross to prevent her from changing into a witch, and the ring to win her affection. But as you might expect, that's far easier said than done. In fact, this game is surprisingly difficult, even on the beginner mode. Each room features a stone floor pattern that's suspended over a bottomless pit, and at least one treasure to collect. But you also have to beware the trolls, goblins, and even dragons that populate the castle. The mallet the witch gave you in the intro is your only weapon, and lets you bop the creatures that get in your face. Don't waste too much time with this. The monsters you manage to knock out will regenerate a few seconds later to pester you again. Also, Eagle swings his hammer much too slowly, and that split-second delay is all the creatures need to kill you with one touch. Fortunately, some rooms contain a heart that can briefly freeze your foes in place. Of course, the castle layout itself presents its own set of challenges. The floor patterns themselves often prevent you from freely moving around each room, and it's not unusual to see a treasure that's only accessible from a certain direction. It also doesn't help that some doors are one-way only, which means you'll find yourself having to leave through a different exit and somehow circle your way back around to obtain a treasure quite a bit. Other doors are locked and require you to look around for a key to open them. Naturally, the limitations of the Sega card format mean very little in the way of visuals and audio. Every room looks the same other than the floor pattern, and the serviceable sprites do their job. The game's single boppy background tune isn't bad, but isn't very memorable either. Eventually you do find the princess, but the caveat is you must have collected all the treasures before you can approach her, especially the cross, potion, and ring. Should you miss even one treasure, the princess will turn her back on you and kill you instantly, ending your game. Which seems a little excessive in my opinion. Trouble is, some of the treasures are hidden and will only appear when you perform certain actions, such as using your mallet to destroy parts of the stone floor. Incidentally, you can cause entire sections of the floor to fall into the pit by knocking out the gray tiles connecting them to the indestructible gold tiles that form the perimeter. Be sure you're not on the collapsing floor or you'll end up falling into the pit yourself. Unfortunately, the game provides no indications or hints as to whether a room contains a hidden treasure or not, or even how to uncover it. You're often forced to basically try everything to hopefully find that last treasure so you can rescue the princess properly. It feels like Sega resorted to this method of extending the game's life, since the simple, early 80s style gameplay won't keep you engaged for very long, if the frustration hadn't already chased you away. Should you successfully complete your quest, your only reward is a screen challenging you to try another castle. You only have the 4 castles to explore, and once you solve each one, there's no reason to play them ever again unless you just want to beat your high score. It's worth noting the original Japanese version featured an edit mode that was cut out from the European release, but don't get too worked up about it. It only allows you to design a single room instead of an entire dungeon. Once you're finished, you select the skill level and your creation is tacked onto an existing map. Since you can't even save your design, this mode is pretty pointless and wasn't missed. All in all, Pit-Pot tried to be something fun, but the dated gameplay, lack of depth, and high frustration make it ultimately forgettable, like most of the other Sega cards. Since more advanced games were available around this time, especially on competing consoles, it leaves you wondering why Sega bothered unearthing this relic in the first place. Take a pass on this quest.